Hi everybody, welcome back. I wanted to just do a quick follow-up video on my high-density veggie gardening experiment. Essentially what I did was I took two varieties of, actually more than two, but mainly two varieties of tomatoes. One was Moneymaker, which I just spread liberally. The other one was really just me chucking in cherry tomatoes from salad and that sort of thing. So there could be more than one variety. In fact, there's more than one variety. I've got those little ones. I've got those. Got quite a few. And pretty much what happened, this is the end of it. Essentially, I'll try find a link to the original video. I planted as many as I could, and they started to grow like mad. We had good weather. My soil was my usual compost that I trench compost, which I can go into in a separate video on request. I have made some in the past. And the first thing that happened was they started to grow. They were awesome. They were starting to look like they were going to get ripe. And then the first issue that I encountered was them growing over the side because, bless my cotton sockses, I actually hadn't thought that I need to stake tomatoes, because normally I just let them grow willy-nilly. But clearly, a variegated variety like this does need to be staked. Okay, so that wasn't necessarily a mistake, but in certain areas, and it was in others. I'll tell you why. As they grow over here, it's fantastic because I like my kids to be able to walk in and just pick tomatoes. So from that point of view, as they ripen, my kids can just grab them. Absolutely brilliant. Goal achieved. The problem, though, is they all started to grow over the edge in between my other raised beds, and you couldn't walk through. And the problem is I've got two young kids that my son in particular is basically like an untamed bull and just runs through things. So in their eagerness, they were starting to cause a bit of damage to the plant. So I had to find a way to stake the tomatoes. By the way, what you're looking at now is after a holiday that I went on where the tomatoes had just started to get ripe. There were more than I could eat, and then we went away on holiday, and then it rained continuously for 2 weeks. Apparently some of the heaviest rains we've had in Joburg in years. So there's a lot of issues that were caused by that, but let me start at the beginning. So I needed to stake the tomatoes, and I needed to do it kind of higgledy-piggledy because it wasn't foreplanned. So my first lesson was plan your staking. Actually set up, proper poles and things, and stake the tomatoes. I made a haphazard job. I had like a day to quickly find material and make a plan on the go before my holiday. I used some old electric fence poles. If you guys live in a country without so much violent crime, you might have not seen these. But anyway, I had some metal droppers from my folks' yard. I had some unused electric fence poles, and I decided to quickly use them as makeshift stakes. I did a horrendous hash-up job, and it looks kind of like some sort of weird Christmas decoration. But it did solve the problem temporarily until I went on holiday. Needless to say, it was a terrible job. First problem was staking tomatoes, or should I say not staking them. Allowing them to hang off is fine if you have a lot of space around the beds, which I did not. The next thing that happened was I started to get what I now know to be blossom end rot. Now, it's kind of past that point now, so I don't know if I'll be able to find any that have that problem. I'm just seeing a lot of frot tomatoes that got overripe while I was on holiday. What a waste. But anyway, the blossom end rot looks, this isn't really it, but it looks kind of like that, where you get this rotten end of the tomato. After looking it up, I originally thought it to be a calcium deficiency, but it seems to be a calcium transport issue because of the fact that when this was all growing so densely, I was watering with a just with a hose pipe and a spray nozzle, and not all the water was getting to the tomatoes evenly, and the calcium in the water wasn't being transported adequately through the whole root system. So in future I would improve my irrigation, maybe use something like Israeli drip irrigation, and put it all the way along the bottom. I think that will probably alleviate the issue, because I noticed after all the rain I didn't get the blossom end rot, although I did get all sorts of other issues. So I think from that point of view that your irrigation system, it's better to have a low down irrigation system. And something that I'll get to now is also, if you've grown tomatoes before, you'll know that if they get inconsistent watering and suddenly excessive watering, they often start to split. And once they split, the ants love them. So you can see like a lot of the ones while I was away, when it rained like mad, they've actually split open from inconsistent watering more than anything else. Or in this case, I think it was really excessive. So consistent water, watered from below, possibly with a calcium supplement, but that's not something I have done, so I can't say I recommend it. It is something I'm going to look at. And then basically, I think once you've planned out and staked your tomatoes properly, I would guess that you can actually do this method of planting intensively quite effectively. It's also a little bit difficult to get into the tomatoes, in the middle, especially the way that I've done it. If you want to, for example, pick once these tomatoes, I'm just looking past all the front ones here. Let's see if I can get my camera in there. But I mean, that really illustrates my point. You can't necessarily get so easily. Sorry, my camera work I know is absolutely horrendous. For some reason, it's not focusing. But you can't get in there. So accessibility is a problem. But if I think about it from the point of my little experiment, the thing was, can I grow a lot more tomatoes in a small space? I mean, that was really the whole point of this. The answer is you can. I grew a massive amount of tomatoes. We really literally couldn't eat them all. And even now, once I've cleared off all the rotting ones, which I'm instantly going to plant. But anyway, as you can see, there's just a huge amount of tomatoes. So while there are definitely problems with doing it the way I did, I don't think that the problem was necessarily caused by planting in a high density way. I think that the problem was caused by not staking properly and not planning for that, not irrigating I don't know what the word is, but below the leaves. I think that if I had, as I say, used an on-the-ground irrigation system instead of watering from above, and if I had staked properly, and if we'd had some consistent water, I think that this would have been even more successful than it has been. Right now, it looks absolutely atrocious. But the bottom line is, I'm trying to grow vegetables in my garden, and the mission has been achieved. Just on a side note, what I did notice is my larger tomatoes had a lot more problems with. It could just be the variety, but I had a lot more problems with my larger tomatoes in terms of blossom end rot. I had no blossom end rot on my cherry tomatoes at all. So that wasn't a problem. I had very little splitting of my cherry tomatoes, and there were so many that it didn't really affect me. And just in terms of the volume of actual tomatoes, just because of the way the cherry tomatoes grew, they're just a huge amount more. So if you had to ask me, would I do this again? 100% I will do this again. And if I implement the lessons taken from my mistakes, then I think it will be even more successful. But for the moment, I have just got an endless stream of tomatoes coming to eat. So I'm going to leave this video and pick some tomatoes for a salad. I would really love to hear your feedback in the comments. Have you done something like this before? Have you had similar problems? How did you fix those problems? Really love to learn from the people watching this as well.